All right, let's get right into it. Picture this. You look up at the sky, and instead of fluffy clouds, you see this massive, living, buzzing storm. A locust plague is honestly one of nature's most terrifying forms of revenge. In just a matter of hours, millions of these tiny hunters can completely blot out the sun, turning a thriving green countryside into a barren wasteland teetering on the edge of starvation. Today, we're looking at a gripping war story, but definitely not a conventional one. It's the story of how a looming apocalyptic disaster was met with one of the most brilliant, totally unexpected biological counterattacks in history. To put this into perspective, just one relatively small swarm of these guys can consume as much food in a single day as thousands of human beings. Thousands. When a catastrophe like this strikes a nation, crops, orchards, even the smallest blades of grass just vanish. All that's left in their wake is absolute devastation, ruined harvests, and starving farmers. I mean, history shows us that locusts have literally brought entire civilizations to their knees. So that brings us to a massive, frankly terrifying question. How on earth do you stop a swarm that blocks out the sun? Their speed is just beyond human comprehension. A single locust legion can travel hundreds of kilometers in one day, totally wiping out the spark of life wherever they land. To fight an enemy this fast and this hungry, you really need a massive, out-of-the-box counterattack. Which brings us to part one of our explainer, failing chemical weapons. Now, the usual knee-jerk reaction to a locust attack is to just drop tons of toxic chemicals from the sky, right? But the sheer scale of collateral damage is a total nightmare. These pesticides don't just kill the locusts. They wipe out the friendly insects and birds that actually protect crops. They seep into the ground, poisoning drinking water reservoirs, and completely ruin the natural fertility of the soil. And on top of all that, the financial burden of renting planes and buying literal tons of chemicals, it's astronomical. But here's the real kicker. The fatal flaw in this whole chemical strategy is the immunity cycle. You spray the chemicals, but inevitably some locusts survive. Those survivors mutate, they build up an immunity over time, and guess what happens next? The next time they attack, you are forced to use an even deadlier, much more expensive poison. It's this endless toxic arms race. China quickly realized they were taking on a massive economic and environmental burden with absolutely zero guarantee that the locusts wouldn't just come back stronger. Moving on to part two. Enter the elite duck army. Faced with this grim reality, the Chinese government and their agricultural scientists made a pivot that shocked the world. They stepped entirely away from chemical warfare and instead gathered a highly disciplined force of 100,000 hungry ducks, prepping to release them straight into the most devastated regions. Just wrap your head around that scale for a second. 100,000 biological weapons ready to be unleashed. Section 3. Why ducks over chickens? Now you're probably wondering, wait, why ducks? Don't chickens eat bugs too? Why not just use them? Well, the difference here is night and day. A chicken will generally just stand in one spot, peck at a few bugs, and get tired really fast, maybe eating a few dozen locusts a day. But a single duck has a monstrous appetite. We're talking easily devouring over 200 locusts in a single day. Plus, ducks have incredible stamina and are masters of both land and water, so they can reach marshy areas that chickens just can't. And most importantly, ducks naturally move together in highly disciplined, tight groups. Do the math on this because it is absolutely breathtaking. When you have 100,000 ducks and each one is eating over 200 locusts a day, this biological army is taking out over 20 million enemy locusts every single day. 20 million. This is so much faster, so much more efficient, and infinitely more effective than any modern machine or toxic spray. Let's look at Section 4. Military precision and strategy. See, this wasn't just some chaotic mob of farm birds aimlessly waddling around. It's a highly coordinated operation. It starts when the herder blows a specific command whistle. Because ducks naturally flock together, thousands of them move in perfect unison, marching forward in a disciplined formation right behind their guide. They sweep across the fields literally like a military unit, clearing a zone. It makes it incredibly easy for farmers to manage massive chunks of land in very little time with almost zero effort. And once they enter the field, the locusts don't even stand a chance. Ducks actually possess unbelievable vision and physical reflexes. Their mid-air interception is unmatched. Even if a locust tries to take off and flee, the ducks will literally jump up and snatch it right out of the air before it can escape. It's like watching guided missiles lock onto their targets. But here is where the ducks secure their ultimate tactical advantage over chemicals: destroying the next generation. You see, chemical sprays usually just sit on the surface of the dirt. They can't penetrate deep into the ground. But ducks, they use their beaks to dig deep into the soil.
They actively hunt down, uncover, and eat the hidden locust eggs and larvae. By entirely uprooting the next generation, the threat of a future plague is practically eliminated. Honestly, only a living, breathing creature could perform a sweep this thorough.
Which brings us to Section 5, a profitable eco-victory. Within just a few weeks, the results completely stunned agricultural experts all over the world. Millions of acres of land were freed from the grip of the locusts, and greenery actually returned to farms where people had completely given up hope. Look the contrast here. On one side, you have chemical dependency, this massive recurring financial drain of machinery rentals, expensive poisons, and dead ecosystems year after year. On the other side, the biological victory of the ducks. The government makes a one-time purchase of the birds, and from that moment on, the army literally feeds itself for free, while the environment thrives. It is the absolute ultimate win-win scenario. And that leads us to the crazy post-war profit. By halting all those chemical sprays, China saved millions of dollars, and the ecosystem naturally restored itself. But the most brilliant part? When these ducks first went into battle, they were pretty thin. But after eating millions of highly nutritious locusts, they grew fat, incredibly healthy, and strong. So once the war was won, these premium ducks were sold at market for their meat and eggs, generating massive additional income for the local farmers. They quite literally turned an apocalyptic agriculture disaster into a highly lucrative harvest. Finally, Section 6, Nature's Superior Blueprint. You know, as the world struggles with massive issues like climate change and the side effects of toxic chemicals, China's Duck Legion highlights such a critical lesson for us. Every problem solution isn't found in a factory. We are always so quick to look to heavy machinery and synthetic chemicals to solve our big issues. But sometimes the most sophisticated, efficient, and cost-effective solutions aren't man-made at all. Sometimes we just need to look at the natural world right alongside us. A silent, disciplined army of ducks defeating a colossal enemy is just a truly unique and brilliant chapter in human history. Which leaves us with one final, fascinating thought for you to take away from this explainer today. If a flock of hungry ducks can save an entire agricultural economy, what other natural armies are just out there in the wild, waiting to be deployed to solve our biggest modern crises? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it completely shifts how you look at the power of nature.